But first, a Mineral County man has been charged with assault of a minor for allegedly slamming a 13-year-old to the ground during a rodeo event for not removing his hat during the national anthem. That 13-year-old boy was flown to Spokane after receiving skull fractures in that incident that happened at the Mineral County Fairgrounds. The parents tell MTN the child was bleeding from his ear for nearly 6 hours after the incident. The boy has been released from the hospital and is back home where he'll continue healing, according to the parents. Curt Brockway was arrested Saturday and appeared in court today. The judge ruled Brockway can be released on his own recognizance. Brockway had not been released, though, as of 5 p.m. this evening.
In Montana, a man is accused of attacking a 13-year-old boy because the boy left his hat on during the national anthem. It happened during a rodeo at a county fairgrounds. The boy suffered skull fractures and had to be airlifted to a hospital, though he is now recovering. According to prosecutors, Curt Brockway claims that he asked the boy to remove his hat and the boy cursed at him. The boy's mom disputes that. In any event, the prosecutors say Brockway lifted the boy into the air and slammed him to the ground.
All of the witnesses I have talked to said this was just completely random. There was no exchange, nothing. It was just he targeted Wally, grabbed him, and took him down.
And a judge allowed Brockway to be released on his own recognizance, even though he is a registered violent offender with a 2010 conviction for assault with a deadly weapon. However, he must wear a monitor device.
Within minutes after dropping her son off at the Mineral County Fairgrounds, Megan Keeler says she received a phone call stating her son was on his way to the hospital.
And all of a sudden, dude come up, grabbed him by his neck, picked him up, and threw him to the ground head first.
The suspect, Curt Brockway, is accused of assaulting the 13-year-old. The 13-year-old victim doesn't remember much about the incident, but witnesses tell us Brockway grabbed him, picked him up, and threw him on the ground here at the rodeo arena just moments after he walked in. Witnesses tell me Brockway tried to justify what had happened. They say he said he did it because the boy was disrespecting the flag by not removing his hat during the national anthem.
And all of the witnesses I have talked to said this was just completely random. There was no exchange, nothing. It was just he targeted Wally, grabbed him, and took him down.
The boy was life-flighted to Sacred Heart Children's Hospital in Spokane after receiving temporal skull fractures. The parents tell us the child was bleeding from his ear for nearly 6 hours after the incident. The boy has been released and is back home where he will continue to heal. As for Brockway, he was arrested and made his initial court appearance on Monday in Mineral County. The state requested his bond be set at $100,000. However, the judge ruled Brockway can be released on his own recognizance. In Superior, Kent Lutzen, MTN News. Many of you had questions about the reasoning behind Brockway's release. We came down to Mineral County to ask Judge Dale Magone and County Attorney Ellen Donahue about this. The word we got, they were too busy. I called and I emailed and I waited outside the courthouse. When I finally spoke to Judge Magone, he admitted to avoiding me and said he couldn't comment on this case. However, I was able to get court documents that give us more insight into Brockway's past. According to these court documents, Brockway was released on his own recognizance on Monday, but is subject to a list of conditions. A few of those include he is required to affix a GPS to his body. He shall have no contact with the victim and his family along with witnesses, and Brockway can only leave his parents' home for work, doctor appointments, and court appearances. This most recent incident, it comes just 6 months after Brockway was released from supervision from a 2010 case where he was found guilty of assault with a weapon. According to a 2010 affidavit, Brockway randomly pulled a gun on a family of 3. According to those victims, Brockway stated he was going to kill them. Brockway was, however, persuaded by a friend to put down his gun and leave the scene. Brockway was later sentenced to the Department of Corrections for a term of 10 years for this incident. All of that was suspended, but he was on probation until this February. According to court documents, Brockway has a traumatic brain injury, but seems to manage rather well. He completed neurological, psychological therapy, and was prescribed medication. The Montana Department of Corrections Adult Probation and Parole determined Brockway to be low risk and successfully served 9 months under supervision. After 900 hours of community service and serving 7 years of probation, Brockway was discharged from his supervision on February 7th of 2019, just 6 months ago. Now, Brockway, he's back in court. He's facing charges for assaulting a minor. Brockway's arraignment has been set for August 14th at 10 a.m. In Superior, Kent Lutzen, MTN News.
The man accused of fracturing a boy's skull at the Mineral County Fair this past weekend says he felt it was his duty as a patriot to discipline the boy. Court documents show 39-year-old Curt Brockway asked the boy to take his hat off during the national anthem, and the boy refused. That's when Brockway stated he grabbed the boy by his throat, lifted him in the air, and slammed him to the ground. Brockway's attorney says that Brockway is a disabled veteran with a traumatic brain injury and that Brockway felt his actions were under a direct order from the president due to the president's condemnation of people kneeling or disrespecting the flag or anthem. Brockway's attorney said his client said, quote, "I guess I messed up because he got hurt, but I'm a patriot." Brockway's attorney says he intends to present his client's neuropsychological evaluation to the court and that Brockway will plead not guilty. He's due back in court on August 14th.
According to the attorney representing this Montana man charged with assaulting a 13-year-old boy who refused to remove his hat during the national anthem, he did so because he believed he was doing what President Trump wanted him to do. Now, I wonder what gave him that inclination.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, "Get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired"?
When you go down and take a knee or any other way, you're sitting, essentially, for our great national anthem. You're disrespecting our flag, and you're disrespecting our country.
Last Saturday, 39-year-old Curt Brockway slammed a 13-year-old to the ground after he failed to remove his hat during the anthem, causing the child to be hospitalized. Brockway's lawyer later cited President Trump's rhetoric as a direct influence on his client's behavior. The man in question is a U.S. Army veteran who, according to his attorney, became caught up in the heightened animosity and rhetoric gripping the nation and convinced himself that he was following the president's orders. Here's the thing, while it's easy to say Trump is directly responsible for this rhetoric of unabashed allegiance to the flag and anthem, now, Trump has been vocal in his efforts to demonize those who knelt during the national anthem, but the false narrative around this being a disrespectful act towards the military and not about police brutality, which they knelt for in the first place, has been perpetuated and regurgitated by those across mainstream media and many others who are actually just too lazy to discuss why Kaepernick and NFL players were kneeling in the first place. They helped fuel this disrespect against the military narrative.
This is a straightforward issue. The NFL's players and the NFL are insulting every single American in dishonoring our anthem, our flag, and the country.
Let me tell you the facts here. This is beyond disrespectful to the country, to the men and women, the millions who have fought, bled, died, were injured defending and fighting under that flag.
And what happens? Well, people like this, they believe everything they watch on Fox News, that any act of disobedience towards the anthem should be met with some form of scrutiny. And now we have a 13-year-old boy hospitalized for not taking his hat off. Here's the thing, I thought this was supposed to be the freest country on earth. Don't we supposedly laugh at countries like North Korea and how their citizens are forced into pledging allegiance to dictators? Well, when I look at this, it sure doesn't look like freedom to me.